Hey guys. So this comment was on my last video about parallel compression by Luke Radu. I'm not sure how to say that, but anyway, he asked if I could talk about the processing and specifically on the percussion for that track. So the track was Pleiades effect. So yeah, in this video I thought I'd go through some of the other processing on that. And so we'll open up the full track first. I'll talk a little bit about that. Well, we're not going to make it a really long video because there's actually a lot of tracks, but I'll try to focus on the percussion, and he said the brams as well. So so layering, compression, things like that. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about how I layered the percussion and the hits. And yeah, I'll solo some stuff out. So hopefully that'll be interesting to you guys. So yeah, let's get to the full track, and then we'll go to the track where I have just the stems, because I did some processing there too on the percussion bus. So yeah, let's get to it. So yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of tracks in this one, and the way I divided it was we had like piano stuff, just the way I organized it here, strings, brass, we got some choir here that I actually took out of the final thing, some pads, synths, then some it would include some of these brams, and then percussion, noise fucker, I don't know what that is. Yeah, actually I do know. That's some electronic percussion there. A lot of these tracks here, these are all the trailer effects. And then finally we have some guitar and bass that I did. Okay, so I'll play the entire track for you guys, just to refresh your memory, and then I'll go in and separate. We'll go section by section. We'll talk about the processing, and we'll focus on the percussion and those brams and trailer effects, things like that. So we'll kind of skip over brass, and although the brass is kind of part of the brams, but strings and things like that we won't focus on as much. So anyway, here's the track. And keep in mind, this is not the final mix, because I then brought it out into the stems and did some further processing, which we'll talk about in the second part of this video. But anyway, here we go. So yeah, like I said, this is probably there's definitely some like distortion there, but that's because this isn't the final mix. But anyway, what that person asked was, how did I layer this part here, which is like this. So that's like the Bram hit. So, you know, there's some strings in there, but it's very subtle. The strings are just doing those hits, kind of. Let me just show you that. So it's this. Let's zoom in on this, just to get that. So that's really nothing to speak of so much, but you know, it adds that layer. But here are the horns here, just the horns for this part. Okay, so that's comprised of the trailer brass, which is a great library. The Horde, which is part of the trailer brass. This is pretty cool. Super low. I also use the Cinesamples Monster Low Brass. Right, it gives it that edge. And also, let's talk about the Bram sound for this. I think it was from 8DO Hybrid Tools 2. So listen to that. So there's a lot going on there when you combine that with the horns and strings here. Right, so that's the Bram elements. Now for percussion, Nicky Romero kick. This ties it together with the next section, which has that trap beat. So I just wanted to. So that's just that kind of bass drum. Kind of trap, EDM kind of bass drum. This noise sound. Okay. Some multiverse hits. Got this whoosh. Big whoosh there. What is this? Hold on. Yeah, so that's like the trailer effect stuff. Is there some booms in there? Yeah. Within. Right? So yeah, so that's it for that. I think I should talk about this because sometimes I'll let me open this up for you guys. I'll bounce this out like these trailer hits here, and I'll do, this seems strange because, you know, normally we don't want like this machine gun effect. But for this kind of stuff, I like the sound of it. Right, so we're thinking it more like early kind of like think of it more like chopping, like when you chop up samples for like hip hop or EDM. That's the approach when you do stuff like this. And when it's in the mix, it actually sounds really cool because you get that whoosh kind of with there. Yeah, it just sounds more like a chop, like a than a nice like percussion sample, you know. So that's the idea behind that. Yeah, so I saved the more like percussion like for the end there, but so let's just listen to the percussive elements, and then so here's just percussion. Now I like using that noise up there because that gives it that intensity. Whenever you use noise in these kind of tracks, it adds to the intensity. So I think it's always a good idea to do that. The riser, I think. Like glitchy riser. But let's hear this now with the brass and strings here. Right, now as far as processing, I didn't really do much. Even on like the synth stuff. This is Zebra 2. The Bram is also no processing really. So yeah, let's check out some hits later on. Then it goes into this trap thing, which is just have an 808 there. That's pretty straightforward. Has some delay on that crash, if you check that out. Some delay and some Valhalla reverb. Some Decimator Drums. So I still have those hits coming in here from the multiverse hits, the trailer effects. Just getting those big. Trying to imagine like cuts on the when you put together a trailer track. Try to imagine like what's happening in the edit. Think of how the editor is going to approach it with cuts and things like that. So big. Something like anchor points that they could grab onto, you know. Keep it interesting. I don't normally go into a trap beat. I don't even know where this came from, but I felt like it was pretty cool. Kind of works. Just makes it more exciting, you know. This could be like an action-y kind of part. Yeah. Alright, here's some interesting stuff I want to talk about. I did this right here. So there's some interesting layering here because I'm using this guitar. I played some guitar on this, and I actually have some interesting effects happening. So you notice that's in the left speaker. Then I have one doing it in the right, but they're offset. There's a tremolo on both of them, but they're offset, so it goes back and forth between your ears. So that helps give, because the horns double that, but I think it gives the horns more of an interesting edge rather than just put horns there, which we hear all the time. Gave it kind of an edge with the guitar here. So yeah, I used this tremolo here. Made it a pretty steep attack here, right, the curve. So it's very, you know, very fast attack. I'm using the bias amp, and it's going to some plate reverb. So I'll play that with the horns just so you can hear what I was going for here. Okay, so I think that's like a pretty cool sound there. Rather than just horns, you know, like if we just do horns. So it gives it that more, that grit, right? And that also that interesting stereo effect. Then we have that nice contrast there of harmonies. So same kind of layering there. Except now I'm bringing in the Decimator drums. So we're building up, right? We had just, and also damage. So on those initial Brams, right, I didn't have the damage and Decimator. So now we're bringing those in. So I try to think like keep building the layers up. Don't have everything come in at once. I mean, you can, but I like to bring in new elements. So actually that stuff starts to come in here. But anyway, so we have that big build up where we have the Decimator stuff with the yeah, that's just this. With the damage. Okay. So then we go into the next part. Get the so that I have that kind of that kind of ticking percussion that I find is good for this to build momentum. We have like this kind of stuff. And here we have some guitar. So let me talk about some of the guitar processing. So that's just the bias amp sim. But what do I have for so EQ? Nothing crazy. Take out some mid. Boosting at 3.3 K. Quite a big boost there because I wanted to cut through the mix. And then I double tracked it. So typical kind of metal sound. It's also sounds like a gate. Yeah, I have like a plate rather. I have a plate just to give it a little air, a little space. You know, have some bass here. I kind of chopped up to make it tight, so it has like that kind of like a noise gate effect. So actually, what do I have on the bass? Oh, I'm using a CLA bass. And I got the compressor slammed with the wall. Some treble boost, the bark setting, which is kind of like a 3K area boost. Distortion, got a little growl on it. A little chorus effect, not too much, just to give it some widening. Some EQ. I did a lot in the EQ, I didn't realize it, but some stuff happening. Getting rid of a lot of this mid stuff for some reason. I think I had some frequencies around 200 that I didn't like too, that boxy kind of sound. So yeah. And plus we're boosting. Yeah. I boosted a little of the bass too, it looks like. So there, I ended up actually taking that choir out, but I don't know, I felt like it didn't fit with the vibe of it. So we won't talk about that too much. So focusing on the hits, let's talk about and then we'll get to the other session where I don't want to spend too much time on this, but so this is like all out, everyone's playing kind of thing. So let me just show you what the percussion is doing here. Well, it has the risers too, but get rid of the risers. Well, actually, I'll show you that after the break. Had those out of there for some reason. That drop metal thing. Okay, so yeah. So no real processing on any of this percussion until I then stem it out, and then I'll put some processing on the bus, the percussion bus, and we'll talk about that in the next part. Oh, so anyway, I'll show you what I did for the risers here. Use this riser. This is gravity, this riser. It's actually 3 risers at once, so yeah, I mean, don't be afraid to layer things, so it just makes it more intense if you use 3 risers. As long as you have a conception of, okay, maybe one is high, one has some low stuff happening, one has some mid stuff. You don't want to be redundant with things like that. So that, I also added the shepherd tone stuff. Let's see. That's the ATO Shepherd risers. So that adds a lot to these other risers here. So what's dramatic about this is that you have the hits happening, that stutter, ba-da-da-da-da, and then you have the risers in the middle that keep going up, so it's like builds a lot of tension, I think, there, and because you know, you're leaving space for that riser. If you have the percussion go all the way through, the risers won't be as effective. So I think leaving that space for things is really important. Alright, so let's quit out of this and go to the next part. Okay, so now we got the stem mix session open. And yeah, let's look at some of the processing I did. So like I said, the choir, we didn't do anything with that. We actually took it out. Drops and booms. So we talked about the parallel compression stuff, but I also did some R bass on the booms and the drop, and I put the intensity to +1 dB and the frequency centered at 70. So what this does is it produces like a sine wave. It finds the frequency and then it matches it with like a sine wave underneath it, so it reinforces the bass. So any sort of like so it's gonna add a lot to the low there. So I use that quite a bit on like drops and things like that, like 808s. You can really hear this on when we have this drop here. So watch without it. So it definitely adds a lot more fullness. So that's the kind of thing with that. This is the trap bass drum. I didn't do anything to that really. 808. 808, more R bass on that. So without it. So a big difference. And this I didn't even mess with the intensity. So this frequency is centered around 50. It's a lot lower, the 808. So this is what Luke wanted to know about in the comment section of my other video. So we got the Epic Percussion stem here and the trailer effects. So I showed you how I layered things. Now let's see what I did for processing. So for the percussion, let's bring it to this like section here maybe. So I did a sharp cutoff there for to leave space. That's why it sounds like that. Leave space for the boom there, the drop. So I got a couple things happening here. First, we got a high pass, because for this percussion, I'm saving the booms for that low boom track. So this is more just impact kind of stuff. So I did a high pass at about 50 here. So that's pretty straightforward. As far as EQ, I did +2 dB at 5K, and then also +2 at 3K. So giving it more clarity there. So this is without. So just bringing out more of those, that top end there. This is kind of like a trick that I use. I like busting some percussion out to the Aphex exciter. So this is interesting, and I don't send a lot to. I just give it like -12, so it's not. But let me show you the difference with this. So here's without. Alright, so it's bringing that, it's giving that sparkle on the top end, and it does more than just EQ. It's like a psychoacoustic effect, like spatialization. So, but I find it works well on like high percussion stuff. Helps it cut through the mix. You have to be careful though, because if you go too far with it, it can get fatiguey to the ear. So it could be like too trebly. Now the final part of this is this compressor here. It's actually a free compressor from Tokyo Dawn, I think it's called. I can leave a link in the description to get this compressor, but what I like about this is you can do parallel compression with it. So let me show you how this works. So let me I'll loop this part here. Let me shut this off actually. So here's without. So I wanted to control its dynamics a little bit more. So I'm compressing. But not a lot. It's pretty subtle. I'm only doing like 1 dB of gain reduction here. But here's without the dry mixed in. This is what's cool about it. So I had this at -16 dB, but if I shut it off, so that's just a compressed signal. So it's nice to be able to do parallel compression in one unit and not have to do like 2 tracks and deal with like phasing and things like that. So we're bringing the dry here. So yeah, I like that, because I like using parallel compression, bringing that compressed signal up underneath the dry. So this is a good way to mix the dry and the compressed signal. So yeah, let's talk about the trailer effects here. Alright, so for this, I had that, I'm doing the Aphex again on this, even though there's some low hits in there too, but I'm not EQing this at all. I'm just using I'm using this API 2500 compressor just to make it punchier. So and I have the tone on normal. If you go too far with this push setting, it sounds a little like too compressed, but I have a slow attack here because I don't want to lose the transients. This is just to control the real like loud hits, sort of. I'm just trying to control the dynamics a little bit. So we'll put them together here. So if you hear this with the drop here, that's what it sounds. Okay, so yeah, that's that. So I found that I didn't need to EQ that at all. Because we want those low end stuff in the trailer effects. Remember, this stuff is all about like trailer effects, so rather than that should be at the forefront when you're doing like trailer tracks. Anyway, that's it for now. Well, talk about guitars. Just a little EQ there. But yeah, I wanted to answer Luke's question about how I process the percussion and those like Bram hits there. So yeah, which are over here. Yeah, so this is just that low, that low trap stuff with the booms. I had the boom every other one here. I don't know why that's doing that now. Yeah, and then we have it with the brass. Did I do anything with the high brass? I think I actually put that through the Aphex, which kind of. And I did some EQing. Oh, the brass I did like a high pass. Or actually a shelf. Did a high shelf here. Cut some of the mids. So nothing crazy. Anyway, yeah, hope that answered all your questions. If you have any more questions, leave them in the comments below. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And hit that bell so you get notifications. And we'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.